think I uploaded too many videos last week. Oh, the insanity. You know, earlier on this last week, I was watching a video by the Young Turks. And let's see if I can... does that look funny? Yeah, that looks pretty strange, doesn't it? It is better if I do that. It's called Amazing Gay Marriage Speech Goes Viral. And it was by Maureen Walsh. Some politician stood up and gave a speech about gay marriage, and what made it interesting was that she's a Republican, and it was a very heartfelt speech, and apparently it says it went viral. And one thing I've noticed though with I left a comment, and the comment had something to do with I've seen this before with Republican conservative types, that as long as it doesn't affect them directly or somebody that they know or the immediate family, they tend not to get involved. I mean, so for example, our San Diego's local police chief at one point was very Republican, very conservative, but it came out that his daughter was gay. And the gay marriage thing came up, and he basically stood up for his daughter. Same thing with Dick Cheney. Now, or Cheney. If Dick Cheney's daughter hadn't come out as being gay, would he have been an advocate for gay rights? No, I don't think so. Things like stem cell research. Usually conservatives, Republicans are against it, against any progressive change, unless it affects them personally. And I left a comment like that, and a lot of people were giving us high fives. Because this Republican woman, even though it was a great speech, and it was very nice that she did it, but in the speech it came out that her daughter had come out, and she really loved her daughter, and now that I apparently, until her daughter came out, she hadn't spoke up, being an advocate of the right to marry for the gay community. So I left a comment like that. And a lot of people were agreeing with me, and they were, coming by and yeah, totally. And in fact, my comment had like the most thumbs up there for a while. It was up in that little area in the top there. And then along came this guy called Wilden15, and I was talking about how the difference is a progressive doesn't need to be personally involved to stand up for a cause. Especially a social cause for social change, progress, a liberal. Sometimes the word liberal is interchangeable with progressive. And he said, what do you mean by progressive? And I went on to explain to him the differences between a conservative and a progressive or liberal, in that conservatives wish things to stay the same. In some cases it's worse, where they want to go back to something what they consider the good old days. And a progressive or liberal is sensitive to social change, like the civil rights movement and gay rights and the women's suffrage movement. Those were all progressive causes. Things that are better for the change of society, prison reform, trying to move forward, trying to become more modern, trying to become more civilized. And it's the sensitive to other people's feelings, hence political correctness. But sometimes these things go wrong. I mean, they're social experiments. Liberals, progressives believe in progress, believe in experiments, but not every experiment's going to be a success. The GI Bill was a great success, whereas the welfare state has major problems. I'll be the first to admit that. But the alternative is worse. Some prison reform was a bad idea. But in the long run, prison reform is a good idea. I still believe that. So I started explaining to this guy, and I should have seen this coming because I've run into this before, is this guy was trying to bait me. He was basically trying to pick a fight with me because I gave a clear definition of the difference of what I meant by conservative. And he came back with something else, trying to make me explain myself further. I took the bait, and then I gave an example of, because I could tell he was kind of conservative, trying to bait me. So a lot of times with these people, I point out how Jesus was a liberal by all definition, by his actions and his words. They hate that. And then, or our founding fathers were progressive or liberal as far as their actions and their words. I mean, they were talking about making progress, a new form of government, new ideas, the separation of church and state, all progressive ideas. And conservatives, they think of these forefathers as some sort of like, demigods, that they use them. They even like distort reality and try to make them as like conservatives. And this guy pushed it further as far as the definition, and I gave him the dictionary definition because I said, well, for example, before the American Revolution, the people of the day that wanted to break away from the crown would be the progressives. They're the ones that wanted change. The people that wanted things to stay the same, which would be like, let's not rock the boat, let's keep things going, let's stay under the service of stay under the, as part of the British Empire, let's stay loyal to England, those would be considered the conservatives by any modern definition, okay? By judging by their actions, by judging by their words. He came back and said, no, they weren't conservatives, they were called loyalists. So then I went back and I looked at the definition of conservative, and one definition I found has synonyms. And one of the synonyms for conservative is Tory. And during colonial America, the political group that wanted to stay loyal to England were called Tories. They were the loyalists. This person still refused to acknowledge that I was correct in calling that group conservative. He tried to use the argument, and this is the way I remember it, that the definition for liberal and conservative during that era was different than it applies today. Well, no matter. It's the modern definition. When a doctor is talking about tuberculosis in the 1800s, he doesn't call it consumption, which is the word for that disease at the time. He calls it tuberculosis by the modern word. It still applies to the past. So by their actions, they're progressive. Then he points out how progressives are wrong. And I said one of the things that was progressive was the right to bear arms, because at the time that was a radical idea. Before, the law and what the conservatives would say, well, this is the way it is, let's just leave it alone, is that when the government wanted to form a militia or recruit soldiers, they would go to town, to village, to whatever, gather up people and say, come on, you're coming with us. And the reason why we had the right to bear arms is for that individual or that family or that group to say, no, it's going to be our own choice whether we come and fight with you or not. We have our own guns, our own weapons. They can use that to defend themselves from their own government, which is a popular idea to this day to the black helicopter conspiracy New World Order type crowd, because they don't want to give up their guns because they feel their own government is going to turn against, become part of the New World Order, and they are going to plan this revolution. Of course, even if they had hand grenades and machine guns, they'd basically have to resort to terrorism. There's no way they could fight a real military. So maybe they would become domestic terrorists, and which in some cases some of them are. All right, I digress. But the point is, the right to bear arms during that time frame, because they were going against what was currently accepted, was a progressive idea. But this person would not see that. They would not understand the concept. And then they go fast forward to the future now where progressives are talking about gun control. Well, once again, and sometimes things go full circle. In order to experiment or to move forward, sometimes, and look, gun control is not the same as saying the militia has a right to come to your door and take you away. Because we're controlling your guns means that we can, well, of course, some of those radical conspiracy theorists say, no, yes, that's exactly what it means. You know why progressives want gun control, all right? It's their idea that if guns were if there were harder access to guns, we wouldn't have as much gun crime as we do. And I don't want to get the whole gun debate, but basically, if you just look at the statistics or whatever, the facts for the way they are, countries that have more gun restrictions have less gun crime. And countries like Syria or whatever, or countries wherever, or South Africa, you know, parts of Africa where anybody can get a hold of a gun, there's a lot more shootings, okay? Bottom line. Anyway, but the idea of the right to bear arms at that point was a progressive idea. Then this guy goes into this whole, like, I need to read, he keeps asking me, did you read Edmund Burke? Did you read Edmund Burke? And it's like, look, I've been into this before, where some guy is so, like, focused on one thing, and they will make it sound, if you haven't read Ayn Rand, or you haven't read the Bible, you have no right having an opinion in this discussion, okay? And, I mean, of course I was dancing around that, because I don't need to know all about some certain philosophical view. Why didn't he say, oh, did you read Rousseau? Or did you read John Locke? Well, maybe he did say John Locke. Or did you read St. Augustine? You know, in order for us to have this discussion, you have to be educated. And he started calling me uneducated. Look, I may be uneducated, but I do know the difference between a conservative and a liberal, and my definition applied, and your argument that those modern definitions don't apply to them. I use another example. During Oscar Wilde's heyday, during his period, his contemporary era, the word gay had an entirely different meaning. But does that mean that Oscar Wilde was not gay when we apply the modern definition? It seemed to me that this person, Wilde in 15, according to his argument, no. Well, Oscar Wilde would not be gay because the word did not have the same meaning during that time period. All right, I got sick of the comments back and forth, back and forth. And look, I'm not going to sit there and waste my time typing out long comments. It's a waste of energy. Besides, YouTube has made it. It's a recent thing with their new format, new design, is that they're limiting the amount of words that you can say, or letters, that you can type in a comment. Apparently, somebody commented on this, and I agree, is that they're trying to curtail the amount of arguments that go on in the comment section, which I don't know why they're doing that, but anyway. So I said to this person, Wilde in 15, I said, look, this is YouTube, and the forum is videos. Now, we could talk about it and talk in the comments, but I felt we've talked enough. I'm laying down the gauntlet. Make a video. Make your points. Address it to me, and I will respond in kind. And so far, this person, and he kept saying, you know, I want you to reply to this point and this point and this point. I'm like, who are you to dictate to me what am I going to do, okay? As far as I know, you're just a faceless troll. Make a video. And I told you, if you make a video, I will address it point by point. But I'm not going to do it typing in the comments. So I'm going to send him this video and say, hey, look, I was talking about you in the first part, so check it out. And so far, he's not a taker. And if he doesn't make a video, I consider it a win. I win! If any of you out there intrigued by, like, elegant design, you know, something that is just so simple or something so iconic, I mean, my taste is just towards things that are less ornate. You know, like the period of art known as the Rococo period is one of the most awful art periods or movements in my mind, ever. When I think of Donald Trump in his pad, his like, one time they did like a Oprah or something, and they looked at Donald Trump and at the time Ivana Trump's residence. Wild about Rococo, wild about gold frames with all this ornate doodleries and, you know, and gold statues and columns and, you know, way over the top, like I think if I'm not mistaken, like the Louis XIV kind of like Sun King Palace sort of thing had a lot of Rococo in it. It's god awful. I like clean, elegant designs. In fact, I mean, that's kind of, even though it's, you know, and sometimes this will fall out of fashion, but the idea, IKEA, you know, already though it's so popular that there's a backlash. But I like the Swede, the Nordic, you know, the simplicity. I'm sorry I'm taking a long way around, but I was going to talk about the elegance of the simple martini glass, especially one of the more basic ones. There's no design or nothing ornate about the stem. This beautiful, I think very simple, conical shape almost like in silhouette or get on a triangle, inverted triangle, and a very simple base. And it's functional too. Like a wine glass, you can hold it by the stem and it keeps the drink cold rather than clutching it like you would a brandy glass to warm the drink. Actually, you want the martini to stay cold. In fact, you shouldn't let it sit too long so it becomes room temperature. Unlike a fine English ale, which should be served closer to room temperature to bring the flavor out. You know why they have to serve American beer ice cold? It's because when you make something very, very cold, it sort of kills the taste. Your taste buds cannot taste something that's really cold. That's why ice cream the flavors need to be intense in order for you to taste it because it's so cold. Anyway, so on that note, time to don the fez. Greetings, fellow citizens. This is Citizen Kong, and welcome to another Fez Night. Tonight's Fez Night should be called Carry On, It's Fez Night. I don't know what the hell I'm going to talk about, but I'm just going to start by making myself a little drink. Because I'm on a budget, normally I would have went right out and bought a bottle of Beefeater's gin. Gordon's used to be my favorite gin until the bastards started selling it in plastic bottles. So anyway, I asked the liquor store guy if they had any specials that I would be interested on gin. And he said they had a sale on this New Amsterdam. And interesting that it's called New Amsterdam, because one of the things it says it's a great American gin, as opposed to a London dry gin. And it's funny they should call it New Amsterdam because it was the Dutch that invented gin, with the juniper berries and the botanicals. And it was, I want to say it was some type of patent medicine. The idea it was sold, by the chemist as a sort of a tonic or something. And Dutch gin is much different. It's dark. And then came out with London dry gin during the period of Jack the Ripper when they had the gin mills, etc. This is off the top of my head, so if I'm wrong about something, please understand. This is just from my memory, off the top of my head. Yeah, they had the gin mills. And an interesting thing about gin mills at the time was that the tax on ale was pretty friggin' steep, but there was no tax on spirits at that time. So basically, gin became the crack cocaine of the era. Basically, it was a really, really intense high or buzz. This is the Gibson Martini. Oh, and I forgot the vermouth. I do like Winston Churchill says, just wave hello, wave to the vermouth across the room. This martini will have absolutely no vermouth. With 3 onions, it's the Gibson Martini. There we go. So anyways, gin was much cheaper and people got really hardcore on it. I mean, these parts of London, the poor would be, you can imagine just like alcoholism gone rampant because it was cheap and intense and the poor drank it in the big cities there. So here's to London dry gin, which is, I assume this is a London dry gin style, even though it calls itself an American gin. Cheers. I'd have to say it's pretty good. I like it. So I don't really know what to talk about. I'm going to try to knock back. For me, the perfect number of drinks is 2. It's too bad. It's too bad one, for me, the perfect number of drinks is 2. On a semi-full stomach, not on an empty stomach, but with a little something there. With 2 drinks, I feel just right. But it's a shame that with alcohol, you can't hit that plateau and stay there. Because what happens after 2 drinks, if you're feeling good, it's really easy to want another. And then another, and then another. And then later you're like, oh my God, you so regret it. And then if you stop at 2 drinks, you feel okay for a while, and then the buzz starts wearing off. You start feeling tired, and Blah, blah, blah. I was watching an episode of Family Guy, and Stewie was talking about brunch. And, you know, when you have brunch with the mimosas, is that what you call it? The champagne and orange juice. And back in the day when I had my bar hopping buddies, I would get invited to these brunches. Locally, they have some pretty good ones in the Mexican restaurants where they have, they used to, as an incentive, you pay for the buffet in the brunch, and you get mimosas really cheap. Or if I'm not mistaken, it's almost like all you can drink. I don't want to exaggerate that much, but I remember the mimosas are really cheap. So you end up having like, I mean, I like for breakfast, if I'm going to go out, I like, especially if I'm going to be drinking, I like something like sausage and eggs and toast, that sort of thing, bacon maybe, and drinking those mimosas, and get pretty buzzed. That was good times, good times. I can remember going from the brunch right to the bar and just continue drinking for the whole rest of the day. But when Stuart was talking, Stewie on Family Guy was kind of talking about, yeah, it's a weird thing, the brunch, you know, you have the brunch and you drink the mimosas and then you want to take a nap and then you wake up and you feel all this disoriented and there goes your day. No, I thought it was funny. So, I think this Fez Night will be mostly consisting of you watching me drink. Yeah, I know I don't enjoy drinking as much as I used to. Granted, though, I mean, that was really, I mean, there was a period when I first lost my job, I had a real problem. And I went to the point of having to not have any booze in the household at all. And it was really funny. The woman that should not be mentioned was actually, because she was of Irish extraction, I know she wouldn't really talk about it, but I'm aware that there were members of her family that had drinking problems, being, you know, Irish. I'm sorry about the stereotype, but something about it. It rings true sometimes, okay? But I don't want to talk about it in a mean-spirited way. But she was sensitive to it. And actually, it's pointed out to me only a year ago that I learned that Blake, my last name, is actually Irish, technically. Even though I grew up thinking it was English, and told by people from England it was English. But apparently it has to do with a long history of the Irish settling in England and becoming British. It was funny. I was watching some program last night. What was it? Somebody was saying, oh, it was an episode of Archer. Ever watched that cartoon? It's great. Archer's great. And you know how I love secret agents and spies and stuff. It's like, it's great. Oh, damn these onions. I shouldn't talk and try to eat the onions at the same time. Well, the matriarch, the head of Archer Spy Agency, right, and the name escapes me at the moment. She's racist. She's prejudiced to the Irish. And one of the reasons she has is that they fought against, they weren't, she said they were against us during World War II. And then the son's really stupid. He goes, the Irish were Nazis? And then somebody else who's a little more together says, the Irish were neutral. And I did not know that. If anybody can back that up, I didn't bother looking it up. Bobo McGraw, Thomas, if you happen to be watching this, would you know anything about that? Now, I wouldn't blame them, you know, as far as being oppressed as badly as they were by the English, to say, oh yeah, everything's cool, we're going to come and fight alongside you against the Huns. I could kind of see that happening. Of course, maybe the English said, we're not giving them guns. We're not teaching them how to fight. First chance they get, they'll turn on us. Anyway, Archer was funny. Now, what was I talking about? Yeah, so my drinking. And at the point where I had to really say, that's enough's enough, because I was really falling back on it. You know, and I always grew up with that idea when I was younger. I wanted to be a writer, you know, and then there's those famous writers that were like known for like their hard drinking, and so there was always a little part of me that romanticized the idea of the drink. You know, you get some bad news, you have a drink. You know, you drink to forget. And I didn't grow up that way. My father was a teetotaler. He never drank. Never in my life did I ever see him touch one drop of alcohol. The few times I saw my mother drink, oh man, that woman could not handle her booze. Plus she was on all kinds of medication and stuff too. Oh, and my dad would get really upset, you know, if he found any booze in the house, because he'd worry that my mother would take a nip, and the combination of these different things, you never know what reaction you would get from her. But nevertheless, I grew up with this romanticizing from watching movies and television of the idea that, you know, that hard drinkers are a certain type of people. Ernest Hemingway was a drinker. You know, this like there's a certain level of society shows sophistication in some of the earlier movies of enjoying the cocktail. You know, and James Bond, shaken not stirred. Of course, his is a different martini. He has olive, and it's actually a vodka martini, which is not a true martini. And so the woman that shall not be mentioned had this thing about drinking because of her family. She herself would never, ever touch hard booze. I mean, apparently she said she tried something along, and I would try to talk her, and I go, come on, a mixed drink. If you just put like one shot alcohol in this drink, it'll be the same as drinking a beer. Now, she would drink beer or wine, but she would never, ever have a mixed drink. And I said, well, I could just make it just as weak as a beer or a glass of wine. And she wouldn't, because she tried it once and she had a really, really bad reaction. And I think it's because the Irish, you know, I know one thing, when she did drink some wine, she became mean. Her reaction to drinking was she would get mean. So anyway, I had the pleasure of dealing with her. She got it in her head that she was going to dry me out. And then part of it was like this form of torture. She was intentionally making it hard on me. Now I understood getting rid of everything and dumping it down the sink, and not that there was that much left. But one thing that was surprising with her is she said, do you have any pot? I said, yeah, I think there's some in the back of the freezer. And I hadn't smoked any pot for a long time. And yeah, drinking was the way I was coping with stuff. And pot doesn't help me cope with problems, really. In some ways, it sort of makes me stress a little bit more. But she said, I was very surprised. She said, well, maybe you should smoke something, you know. And I know she really, really looked down on that whole pot thing. When we were together, I didn't smoke pot, and if I did, I had to hide it from her. That's the way at least I felt, you know, about it. But she herself said, no, you probably need something, you know, now that you're like being cold turkey. Well, I didn't really have a major issue with it, but I'll tell you, staying drunk all the time, practically, I mean, and she was telling me, yeah, I smelled the booze all the time. Even though I think I was sober, you know, that's not fun. I haven't had anything to drink. And she would need a ride or something, and I'd drive her around and all that. And if you would have asked me at the time, I'd say, no, man, I'm perfectly sober. But looking back at it, I was like buzzed all the time. You know, if I wasn't, I don't know, why am I telling you this? Because I'm drinking. So I basically really had to quit drinking altogether. So at least I don't qualify as a typical alcoholic, because it wasn't that hard for me to quit. But I do happen to be one of those people that has a slight, I guess, maybe substance abuse problem, is that I will switch I will go from one thing to another. So I'll go from like cigarettes and alcohol to pot and heroin. No, just kidding about the heroin. Anyway, I'll be right back. Let me get some more ice. Oh. Yeah, getting more ice. Nope. Now, funny thing about ice. Sometimes it clumps together and you can't do anything with it. All right, good enough. So I'd say like 2 drinks is pretty good. Oh. There's some of you that miss the Fez Night or Citizen Kong drinks on camera. There's more of this American gin. This time I'll put just a touch of vermouth in there, just a hint. Not that I missed it on the first drink. So if I'm going to continue on burying myself on camera, talking about issues with drinking and stuff, and substance abuse, I had an interesting experience. So some of you are familiar that they, because, stupid Obama, they're cracking down on the marijuana dispensaries, and one of the ways they're really going after them is not directly. They're going after the landlords, putting pressure on the landlords and say, you know, we're gonna make things difficult for you, you know, because you're renting out to this dispensary. Now, most landlords, you know, it's all about the money, and they don't want any trouble. So basically, they say, hey, you know, you become too much of a risk, you're out of here. And but there is. So I was calling around, because it was getting time for me. I was running low, and I was thinking about buying some. And one of the only places that was still in business was over in Hillcrest. And I have a feeling there is that the landlords in that area are probably a little bit more militant and are going to like deal with it. That's my feeling, because that was the only place that's still open. But the workaround, I think, is that, whoops, I got an alarm here. The workaround there is what they're starting to do is the places that are still in business, and there's some new places that are in business, what they're doing is they're delivering it. What a strange idea, you know? And so I called around a little bit, and it seems that's all they wanted to do is deliver, you know? And the last place I went, their office was still open, but they cut their hours way back. So I said, what the heck, you know? And I don't want anybody, you know, it's no secret that I've talked about it many times. I'm kind of a slob, you know, and I live around a lot of clutter. And unlike Real Man and some other people on YouTube, I position my camera so you don't want to see all that. But I had to have somebody come on, and I wasn't going to make her stand outside while we're dealing with this. So I cleaned my living room, got it all like set up, put stuff in other rooms and everything, and you know, cleaned the floors and dusted and everything so it looked presentable. And it's actually not too bad for a heterosexual male, you know, as far as a guy that lives alone, you know, and you know, and I'm not all like you know, trying to be a male version of Martha Stewart. Face it, if my haters if it was true what my haters say, that I'm gay and I'm anal and I wear makeup, then why would I live like a slob? Okay? Like some Oscar Madison, you know? If I'm supposedly prissy, you know, like a certain person says, then why would I have this Oscar Madison vibe going on, huh? You know, they can't make up their mind. All these concepts are at odds because they're just pulling shit out of their ass, you know. If they really wanted to insult me or jibe me based on truth, call me a nerd. Or I mean, somebody was calling me a pipsqueak. Okay, that's fine. You know, if you're the type of person, if somebody is short of stature and you feel that's a reason to belittle them, you know, that's fine. I think it says something about that person. But at least it's true. It's based on some truth, you know, rather than the stuff they just completely make up out of thin air. So anyway, or they pull out of their ass. So I had some delivered to my house. Oh, and the gal that delivered it was so cute. And I invited her in. Here, have a seat. Did the paperwork and everything, and then I made a purchase. And then I gave her a tip on the way out. Very strange. How could I have even imagined in my wildest dreams, back when I was 16 years old and I first started smoking weed, that someday in the 21st century that I could call somebody on the phone and they would deliver it to my house. And I could pick something off the menu on something called a website. Talk about progress. See, that's what a progressive would give you. A conservative would never do that for you. Never. And they're still resisting it. And if Obama is such a socialist and has basically wrecked the country, then why is he siding on this federal crackdown? Because he's getting pressure from the conservatives. And because the racist, face it, there's a racist component in the conservatives. Because people unlike themselves scare them. People that are different is scary. And so a black president, or a person that's half black, you know, that is sympathetic to the reefer man, well, they couldn't deal with that. That's another thing, is that Obama is very, very careful not to show anger, you know, and become the uppity one, because of how they would attack that. And what about the whole? Do you remember? And because I'm a gun person, semi-gun person, I don't consider myself a gun nut, a gun loony. But when Obama was elected, people, the wackos, were making a beeline for the gun stores. Gun stores locally in San Diego were having advertisements on AM radio talking about how the right to bear arms was going to be taken away, so you better stock up now. And they were having sales on guns, and then ammo became very hard to get a hold of. In fact, at one point I was buying some 380 shells for my Walther PPK. It's a .380. I'm not such a gun nut, but it's a 380 ACP, I think, and I forgot what the ACP stands for. Round, which is like a short 9mm. It's 9mm in diameter, but it's shorter than a 9mm. I had to wait. I ordered it on a website, a Sportsman's Guide, that sells like discount ammo and things like that and sporting goods. I had to wait 3 months for them. They kept being on back order. And that was the part of the whole madness, the hoarding, they were scared. They were scared. Obama's going to take our guns away. We better buy some now. And they started stockpiling ammo, and it became ammo shortages. What happened to all that, huh? It's just nuts, fearmongers. Well, I think I'll work on the rest of this drink, and then maybe I should end this. I won't be doing another drinking Fez night. This is a 3-day weekend. And I figure I was going to do a few things. Got clothes in the dryer right now. I don't drink that much anymore, so maybe my tolerance has been affected, eh? I don't like smoking and drinking. Oh, I got some email in. I was just checking my email. Sorry. So, I'll say thanks for my response to my Ask Citizen Kong thing. I know that I've been doing these really, really long vlogs, and it's very self-indulgent, so I thought I would try something shorter. But in the long run, I ended up doing a lot of short videos, which is very self-indulgent too. And I'll tell you, this is another thing I should really honestly try to quit. Smoking tobacco. That's a tough one. See, I've quit smoking pot many times, and I go for like long stretches, like a year or two, and then completely gave up alcohol once as a test for total complete 30 days. But since that other problem, since I quit my job, man, I went months without touching a drop, and with no real issue. But of course, I always switched to something else. But it's the cigarettes. That's a tough one. I once quit smoking for 2 years. And then when my dad died, I remember right after the funeral, a friend of mine had some drink and some drugs and offered me a cigarette, and I started again. Which makes me think about something. Dare I open a can of worms? Well, it's not exactly a can of worms. Somebody that was arguing with me in the comments claimed, because, well, the reason why they claim this is because this person was not paying attention, that I've been inconsistent. On one Fez night, I talked about how I got kicked out of college. I was feeling like stressed, and their interpretation was that I was so stressed out because I couldn't handle college. And in one sense, that's true. But it didn't mean I hated it. Part of the problem was I was overstimulated. But the other issue is that my dad, who was born in 1907, who had me when he was 55 years old, during my first semester of college, or between semesters, when I was entering my second semester, he had a heart attack and was in the hospital. And it was up to my brother and my mother to take care of him. And that was not a good situation. My brother is not good at taking care of people. And when my mother was having issues and problems, she couldn't take care of him either. And so I found that stressful. So besides the pressure of class and writing papers, and the drug use, and the fact that my father had a heart attack, it all culminated in something. Plus I had a predisposition to mental instability, which I inherited from my mother. So that's when it all came together. But that has nothing to do with me not liking college, because what I said on the last Fez night was about that if my parents had money, when I got kicked out of college, money would have solved the problem. I would have gotten help, and then my tuition would have been paid, and I would have went back. But as it was, I lost everything. I lost my scholarships. It all just fell apart, and there was no rich parent or nobody with an open wallet to say, here you go, let's pick up the piece and start over again. Because I've known lots of people, well, not lots, but I've heard of many stories of people that had a difficult first semester. Something would happen, some sort of tragedy, but they would pick it up, and their parents would say, okay, here you go, and they'd send them back off. I didn't have that. I didn't have a safety net. Once I blew my chance was over. And so, get that straight. I know this person likes to twist and spin and manipulate just to make herself look better, or look good, or look like she's like the one who's correct. And a lot of it has to do with like the same issue I had with this person talking about definitions, is that ignoring the definition that's accepted, a modern definition. And the modern definition of plagiarism is to claim somebody else's work as your own. And she said that I was no better because I stole a video, but I did not claim it as my own. I openly said, I stole this video and I re-edited it. And if this person, and she called it a prissy thing to say, no, I consider it an honorable thing to say as far as thievery goes. But I was very, very open, and it was not plagiarism. To openly say, I stole this, here it is. I think it's much, much different. And so you can spin it, and you can lie, and you can manipulate words and ignore the definitions and the meanings of words to make yourself sound in the right. But a fact is a fact. That you took somebody else's footage, you posted it, and claimed it was your own. Bottom line. And you can go back and pretend, oh, I was just kidding, I didn't mean it. No, it's when you were caught that you said that. That's why I was never a good thief. Because I'm like, it was me. And the motivation is completely different. Completely different. Well, anyways, for those of you that miss the Fez Night where I'm drinking, if I do my Foster Brooks imitation, it'll be a hell of a long time before I do another one. All right? So anyways, everybody have a great week. I still have a little bit of a drink left in here. Everybody have a great week, and thank you for watching. Carry on. It's Fez Night. I hope I got that right. Carry on, Fez Night? I think that's what I said. Carry on. It's Fez Night. Cheers.